very, very knowledgeable speaker. Today, not so much specifically about all the different birds, but specifically about birds patrol and seabirds. So thank you. So, Ian.
Kia ora everyone, thanks very much for the introduction. Thanks for coming along this evening. Now, we've got quite a good number of pictures, and a lot of them are going to be of dead things. Okay, so just to give you that information now, there's a lot of death involved in beach patrolling, but it's all in a good cause. So let's just move on into it. We're going to describe a little bit about Birds New Zealand and a few other things as well, but that's firstly our logo, the Birds New Zealand, and we're going to give you a little bit of an overview, so a bit about Birds New Zealand itself. We're always trying to upsell you to our membership. In fact, a lot of people in this room tonight are actually members of Birds New Zealand as well, which is fantastic. So we're going to talk about the beach patrol scheme, resources we use to identify birds, things like beach wrecks, fisheries, bycatch and pollution, human persecution, which is always very interesting and rather awful, new birds for New Zealand, and the current challenges with beach patrolling, because there are a few things that we're going to have to contend with now, including bird flu. So let's move on into it. So Birds New Zealand is also known as the Ornithological Society of New Zealand, but we use the common name Birds New Zealand because a lot of people don't know what ornithology is or what it means. We also have a name in Te Reo, Te Kahui Matai Manu o Aotearoa, which basically very roughly translates to the study of birds. So we've been founded in 1939, just before the Second World War, and we're all about sort of fostering the study and enjoyment of birds. Okay, so we do a lot of study and we sponsor a lot of study as well. So that's just a little bit there about us. We have some brochures here for you to take away as well. Just a little bit about what we do. So we have lots of national schemes, and some of them are the New Zealand Bird Atlas scheme, which is e-birding, which is something we've recently completed. There's rare bird sightings, looking for new birds into New Zealand, new species. There's beach patrolling, there's banding as well, there's a nest records scheme. There's lots of different things that we use in the research of our birds here in New Zealand. We also do a lot of education and advocacy, and you might recognise a few of these places here. Yes. One of them is Matuku Link,
yep.
Which is always one of our
the middle one as well.
favourites. There's Ambury Park and there's Cornwall Park and there's a few other things. So we have a lot of volunteers in our membership, and they got pretty good people skills, and they like to give presentations and help educate people about our bird life. So yeah, please come along to Matuku Link. It's one of our favourite places. Now this is where we start getting into the gory pictures, a little bit about our beach patrolling. Okay, so beach patrolling was started in 1951, and we've been doing it for 75 years, so it's one of the longest citizen science projects in New Zealand. It's a huge database, and something like 400,000 records of birds. What else can I tell you about it? At the time it was actually introduced, the Ornithological Society of New Zealand, Birds New Zealand, was only 11 years old and it had a very small membership. And we took on this project, which was one of the first in the world to actually do this sort of thing, beach patrolling. They don't actually do it in Australia, very strangely, but there's other countries where they're wanting to starting to do it. Places like Ecuador. Recently we had Ecuadorian seabird scientists. We took them on a trip to Karikari and we did a beach patrol, and it was all about passing our knowledge on to them about what we do. So quite a few pictures here of a lot of different dead birds, common diving petrels, bullers, albatrosses, and some of us at work putting the ute into very good use there. The back of the ute, lots of dead prions and blue petrels on it. And often we find actually live birds as well. So here down the bottom there, we're taking a grey-faced petrel to Bird Care Aotearoa. So why is beach patrolling so important? Well, it's very important to sort of just to record the trends in our seabirds. Are they declining? Are there particular reasons why they're dying off? Is there problems with pollution? Is there problems with bycatch, fisheries bycatch? And this is a picture here from Stefan. And it is of us doing a beach patrol at Pakari Beach. Now these days we actually wear fluoro vests, which is a new thing because now we have to make sure that the four-wheel drive people can actually see us. Okay?
Must be blind people or something.
There's a bit of blindness and stupidity comes into it as well. We'll talk about that later. Okay, so it's a huge amount of data that we've collected over 75 years. And if anyone wants to use it to do any sort of research, you're most welcome to ask us about it. But it is very, very useful data. And as you see, there were recorded up to 115 seabird species in New Zealand. Because we are actually the seabird capital of the world. Okay? Where there's a cormorant capital and the penguin capital and the albatross capital as well. We have more of those species than any other countries. So how is it done? Well, it's quite interesting. We walk along the absolute high tide mark, so the really soft sand. And when you've walked about 10 kilometres on soft sand, you will feel it later in the day. It is quite hard work. So we go along the high tide rack line and we collect most of the birds that we find. There's some which are too large, so if you find a gannet, you just record it as finding a gannet and you leave it high up in the dunes so that next time you count, you don't count it again. And there's a couple of other birds that we do that with as well. Blue penguins, they're actually quite heavy, so we record them when we put them up high. If we're really, really, really busy, we will record birds as we're going along and identify them and put them up there. But quite often, we bring them home. We used to bring them to the car park, but it used to create a scene. If you do it at Muriwai now, if you had 50 birds lying on the ground, people would come up and, what the hell's happening here? And there'd be panic. Bird flu. Had they died from 1080 poisoning? No, they haven't. They've just died naturally. You have to explain all this stuff. So quite often we take them home and in our backyard in Henderson, Trina and I obviously lay them out and identify them to species, which can be quite hard work, and we have a few things which help us do that. So this is just a picture here of an unfortunate black-backed gull. So we do beach patrols regularly in certain parts of the country. Auckland is one of our hotspots, Northland as well, Waikato, Wellington and Southland. Unfortunately, South Auckland don't do them anymore, and there's a reason for that which we'll tell you about later. So we've got lots of beach patrol equipment. We have bill profile cards, and we have one just over here, which you can look at later, and there'll be a couple of pictures of them being used. We have all sorts of rulers for measuring wings. We have calipers for measuring bill lengths, for claw lengths, and all sorts of things to help identify birds. We have a beach patroller's guide, and there's a copy of it over there, which is fantastic. Notebooks. We have lots of rubber gloves, particularly important at the moment, particularly when you're on a beach patrol. So if you're doing Pakari Beach for all day, halfway through you're going to have your lunch. You don't want to be handling dead birds, which things are crawling out of, and then eating your lunch. Yep. So lots of hand sanitizer, mobile phone camera, plastic and Hessian bags to bring all those birds back to identify them. So Hessian bags are actually old-fashioned sacks, which we reuse. Okay, we wash and reuse. So lots of different equipment. And that's just a picture of Beach Patroller's Guide. It's a wonderful book. It's created in the late 1960s. It has all the measurements of all the different birds. So if you want to look at wing length, length of the bill, length of the legs, length of the tarsus, all that information is there. And there's quite a few copies here of different books that we use, different seabird books. And this might have information like this. There's a lot of birds here which are very similar in the way they look. So the Cook's petrel and the Pycroft's petrel look very similar. Also the Gould's petrel and then Stengen's petrel. There's also the Juan Fernandez petrel. There's always petrels that come from all the way around the Pacific. And they can look quite similar, but there's different things about them. It might be the sort of length of the tail. It might be just the colour on their back. A lot of them have like an M-shaped dark pattern to their plumage. And it might be the colour of the underside of the wing, or the wing length. And then it might be the plumage around the face. So all these things need to be measured and looked at. And some of the sort of measurements that we might take are the culmen, which is the length of the nose, the length of the bill. I'm not talking about people, we're talking about birds. They have a bill after all. Middle toe and claw, the tarsus, the tail, the wing. We only measure the wing from the carpal joint, which is like the bird's shoulder to the end. So lots of interesting stuff. And this is just a picture of us doing our work. So we've got Dion Poe here, looking at a whole bunch of prions and shearwaters. Shearwater wing in the backyard, and then one here, which looks like it's an actual white-faced petrel. Grey-faced petrel. The first thing we do when we find a bird is we look for any bands. And very unusually, we don't find many bands. Despite the number of banded birds that are out there in the world, we don't actually find many seabirds that are banded. And I'm just going to show you a couple of pictures of the birds as we find them. These are good ones. Okay, so they're not in bits. Sometimes we find bits, just wings. But this is a bullish shearwater and a fairy prion. So the bullish shearwater is the larger bird at the bottom, fairy prion at the top. This is what we call a Cape petrel, sometimes known as a Cape pigeon, which is a beautiful black and white petrel that mainly breeds in Antarctic, around the Antarctic Peninsula, or on the New Zealand subantarctic islands. And these are really interesting birds. Storm petrels are always amazing. White-faced storm petrel has particularly long legs because it patters on the water. It is called the Jesus bird because it can actually walk on the water. But when you look at the legs are very, very long compared to the body size. So it's quite different to a lot of our other seabirds. There's a beautiful picture here of one from NZ Birds Online, and this is a couple of pictures of one that we've found as well. We often find land birds as well. So these are two kaka, and this is from Parkery Beach. And quite often on Parkery Beach we have found kaka, often in pairs. And we can actually tell sometimes that they are a pair because the bills are different in shape. So we've found a male and a female, often close together, maybe 20 metres apart. Kaka have flown, say, from Aotea, Great Barrier Island, or Hauturu, which is a little barrier, to the mainland and back. They can fly. Something has happened to them on the way. Maybe there was some really bad weather, but we have quite often found them on Parkery Beach, I think 7 times in the last 4 years. We often find other things like pukeko and tui as well, song thrushes and blackbirds.
Do you record all of them?
We record all of them, yeah. Because some of the land birds are actually, occasionally, as you'll see, can be first records for New Zealand. This is one of my favourite birds, but unfortunately this one is passed, and that is a light-mantled sooty albatross. It's a really majestic albatross that breeds in, say, the Campbell Islands or Auckland Islands to the south of New Zealand. And we'll have a really nice picture later on of one in flight. Are actually quite a beautiful bird, but unfortunately this one has passed on. Its wing was actually damaged. So the end of its wing was broken, and we think this is probably from fisheries bycatch It's probably actually collided with a trawling cable or some sort of cable on a boat. Now, one of the sort of big things which we record are beach wrecks. So this is when we find a huge number, can be a huge number, like in the thousands, or it can just be in the dozens. But we could find a lot of birds all dying at the same time. And there might be various reasons for it. It could be a really bad storm event, or it could be a lack of food, or something else. And often it can be species specific. Okay. This is actually a picture from a beach patrol where we found 5 types of prion. And there are actually only 7 species of prion in the world, but these are 5 of them. And I've often shown this photograph without the actual saying what they are, and it can be quite a mission because the birds all look very similar, although their bills are slightly different. So some of them really stand out. The broad-billed prion has the broadest bill. The next one with the next widest bill is the Salvin's prion. And then we have the Antarctic prion, which also has a wide bill. And they actually have something called a lamalier, which is like a whale. It's like a baleen plate, and they use it to filter plankton. So these prions feed on things that are slightly different. So the slender-billed prion and the fairy prion have slightly narrower bills. There's also another one called the Fulmar prion, and there's a McGilligraves prion, which is halfway between the broad-billed and the Salvin's prion. And apparently it's been found in New Zealand once, but this probably arrives all the time, but we just haven't got the skills to actually identify it properly on the spot. Okay, so a lot of our seabirds can look very similar, and it can be a real sort of investigative process to actually work out what species they are. So we're going to go into one of these wrecks, and this is a really big one. So it was a period of about a week to 10 days in July 2011 where there was hugely strong westerly winds coming across the Tasman, and they were blowing all the birds up against the shoreline. And a lot of these birds don't breed on the west coast of New Zealand, so they're not prepared to fly over land. So they're battling the strong wind, trying to stay parallel with the beach, or trying to stay away from the beach. And it exhausted quite a few birds. So it's known as the Great Prion Wreck. And this is a picture taken by Diane Fraser. It's actually in Woodhill Forest. And we collected probably close to more than 10,000 birds on Muriwai Beach, just over 30 kilometres, 10,000 birds. And they were in piles. So we identified them and put them in piles. You have a pile of broad-billed prions, you have a sort of pile of Salvin's prions.
Second seabird disaster around that time because you had the oil spill in Tauranga.
That's correct. There was an oil spill as well, which is very unusual for New Zealand. So just a list of all the species there, and by far the largest number were broad-billed prions. So 8,484 prions. And a lot of other different prion species, and then we had diving petrels, a couple of others. But it was huge. More than 300,000 birds were found. And in some beaches there was a dead bird every 1 metre. Okay, so this is terrible stuff. As you can see, there are a lot of broad-billed prions. So the interesting thing about this is that broad-billed prions actually breed around Rakiura, Stewart Island, and they also breed in the Chatham Islands. And that summer, researchers realised there didn't seem to be any less broad-billed prions than usual. So most other broad-billed prions actually breed in the South Atlantic Ocean. And it could be that the population from Gough Island in the South Atlantic, those birds had actually flown into the Tasman Sea and perished. Because a lot of these birds actually do breed in the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. But yeah, but after all the death, there didn't seem to be any sign of any fewer numbers in New Zealand. So very unusual. So yeah, the national result's actually more than I thought, 350,000. An estimated 91% were broad-billed prions. So it's actually a huge wreck. Sometimes we have wrecks which are much smaller, and this is an example. This is how we present it at our Birds New Zealand meetings. So this is back in 2018. Just a whole list of species here, including a few land birds like Australian magpie and European starling, but a lot of prions, 42 fairy prions, 48 thin-billed prions. So quite a selection of birds. Most of these birds are from the southern oceans, so the sub-Antarctic and the Antarctic Peninsula. We're going to move on to some of the other things that we look for. And this, specifically, we look for fisheries bycatch and pollution. So we check all these birds, just have a quick look at them. Sometimes we find them wrapped in fishing line. Sometimes we find them when we're walking along the beach and we look up into the Pahutakawa trees and we find a pied shag hanging by the nylon. Occasionally, like this little shearwater here, we find nylon wrapped around the wings. Okay.
Why are they doing that?
They just get caught in it. They probably get lured by the bait in this particular case. There's a very thin line, and I think the person was probably fishing for piper or some small fish, and a little shearwater got caught up in it. And often people just cut the line and let the bird go, but the bird dies because it's wrapped in nylon. So a couple of pictures there from myself, Virginia, and Jeremy Painton. And this is also another one that we get. So we get a lot of birds caught in nylon, like this unfortunate gannet here, but we find very unusual things. And the middle picture is of a fluttering shearwater, which has actually been wrapped up in the streamer from a balloon. And at that same time, I actually found 2 other helium balloons on the beach, not very far away. So we think of this wonderful thing where we buy people a bunch of balloons for their birthday and we go outside and we let them into the air. It actually has consequences. And that consequences could be 50 kilometres away, the land or the sea. Birds are attracted to them and they get wrapped up in them. This fluttering shearwater had the actual streamer wrapped around both wings. So basically it was tied back, couldn't fly, it died of starvation on the ocean. Not very good. And another nasty one, which we look for, is human persecution. So in New Zealand, we actually think we're pretty good at killing pests, and we are, but we're also incredibly good at killing native and endemic birds as well. You think of the kea, 150,000 were killed because apparently sometimes they killed sheep. Now that they're protected, you never actually hear sheep getting killed by kea. Has anyone heard any headlines about? No, it doesn't happen.
Or any headlines of them being ripped by ripping up cars.
Yeah, that's another sort of bitch and moan thing that people have. But yeah, we did have a history of persecuting birds. So the other one that was killed was the kahu swamp harrier. Apparently some people believe it's the size of an eagle and it can carry away lambs and kill lambs. It actually can't. It's actually eating lambs that are already dead. But for about 40 years we persecuted them and we paid bounties, and it was a way of farmers' children making pocket money. And it's the same with shags as well. So this book here, which I'm showing there, The Shag Menace, is actually a book not from the 19th century. It was actually produced in 1945. And it has all sorts of pictures of people proudly displaying the shags that they killed. So black shags in particular. The black shag is now finally protected, as are all our other cormorants or shags, but this sort of thing sticks. So when you're told this from, people started saying this back in the 19th century, they still have a hatred against shags to this day, and it results in them being killed for no other reason than they eat fish. Okay? So sometimes when we're actually beach patrolling, we do find pied shags in particular which have been shot. This is on Muriwai Beach, so that the shags fly parallel with the beach when they're foraging. Often they will nest in lakes, say behind Bethels or Tihinga, and they'll fly out to the west coast, travel along the beach, and some guys in their four-wheel drive set up a zone where they just shoot any bird that flies into the zone. So often along Muriwai Beach we'll find shotgun cartridges, and we have on this occasion here found 2 pied shags. And it's not pleasant, but we do record this just to give an indication as to how often this happens. So there is a lot of data about how many birds are actually shot. It's a very unfortunate thing. Now we're going to move into some positives, okay, really positive news. And this is actually new birds or new species for New Zealand. So beach patrolling is very important for finding new birds to our country. And this is one of the most recent ones. The name is Zwanen's petrel. It's spelled with a J, but it's French. And this species actually breeds off the coast of Yemen in the Arabian Peninsula. And you're more likely to see it if you're in the Strait of Hormuz. Yeah? You're sitting on a boat there that's been sitting there for 6 months and you haven't moved. You've probably had plenty of opportunity to see this wonderful petrel. But this species was actually found, I think it was in May of this year, by Pat Miller, who's one of our members from Northland. And he patrols all of the west coast beaches, west of Dargaville, places like Bailey's Beach, and he found this particular petrel, and it was a first for New Zealand. So quite amazing that a bird all the way from the coast of Arabia is actually found in New Zealand. And you know, it might be here quite often, we just don't know. So we always find something new, and there's a few others. So this is one that I was one of the people that found it, but it was actually found by a gentleman from Bermuda who was in New Zealand to actually study some of our birds, and his name is Miguel, and this is on Muriwai Beach, right by the surf club, and we found New Zealand's first Horsfeld's bronze cuckoo. Now it's very similar to a pipiwharoa, a shining cuckoo, but it's one of the close relatives of that species which breeds in Australia. So this bird was a juvenile, and it was probably flying from Tasmania to Australia and then going to Indonesia, and it got blown off course and just about reached New Zealand. It died just offshore and then got washed ashore, and it was an interesting bird. I thought, when we got it at home, I thought, this looks like a rufous fantail, which would have been another new one for New Zealand. But we got a lot of really good advice from people like Brian Gill, and also from Colin Scully. And we had the bird identified by quite a few experts, and it ends up being New Zealand's one and only record of Horsfeld's bronze cuckoo. So this was a completely new record, and yeah, it was quite surprising. Because probably at the part of the beach that it was in, there was probably 300 people. Any one of them could have stood on it, and one of the many dogs there could have eaten it. But we found it, which is amazing. Now, this is what it actually normally looks like. So it's a little bit like a pipiwharoa, our shining cuckoo. It just has a very rufous tail. Okay. So if you see a shining cuckoo in your garden, have an extra look at it, just in case it has this amazing pattern of tail. It might be a Horsfeld's bronze cuckoo. A couple of other ones as well. So our first records of the channel-billed cuckoo in New Zealand were actually from beach-wrecked specimens. So this is a bird's skin specimen, and that was actually found on a Northland beach. And that was one of New Zealand's first records of this very large cuckoo. It actually is found mainly in places like Queensland, New South Wales and Australia, and it actually parasitizes crows. Okay, So it is actually larger than a Australian raven, about the same size, and it sometimes visits New Zealand. Now, amazingly, it has been seen this summer in New Zealand, and this picture is actually from Tiritiri Matangi Island. So that's the bird in flight. It was actually taken by an American young birder who was visiting New Zealand. Just up by the lighthouse, he looked out to sea, saw this amazing large bird flying across, and he photographed it. And it's one of the few pictures of a live channel-billed cuckoo in New Zealand. Yeah, where someone's actually been able to photograph it. So we do find some very interesting birds. Now I'm just going to talk about some of the challenges that we're finding. So traditionally, beach patrolling was often an all-day event, and we did it once a month, say at Muriwai Beach, and we had keys to all the gates in the forest, and we could drive up the, say, 10 kilometres further north, drop people off, they would walk back. We'd leave keys in a car, and then they'd pick the car up and drive back and pick someone else up. And we had all this network of doing things. We could actually cover 20 kilometres in a day. Unfortunately now there's sort of limited access. A lot of the pine forests are now privately owned, they're owned by iwi, but there's also a huge health and safety concern. So now they will no longer let us go through a production forest, which is fair enough. No one wants people to be hit by a tree that's felled on them, or get in the way of some sort of machinery, all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of health and safety, and for that reason they don't allow us to actually drive through the forest anymore. There's also, people have much limited amount of time as well. They can't spend a whole day in that doing a beach patrol. They only want to spend half a day doing it, which is fine. But the biggest issue that we have is increased and often reckless use of four-wheel drive vehicles. So there's a picture here, and you can see one woman just ducking out of the way, and then right in front of her is another woman. And these people were genuinely scared, because what was happening here was, number one, the gentleman was driving a four-wheel drive along the beach when the tide is coming in. So often drivers are not very clever people. Take their vehicle on the beach when the tide is coming in. You don't have to drive along right along the edge of the dunes. He was travelling at speed. He saw the two ladies in front, but he didn't slow down. He had to rush out of the way. And this was actually photographed by Graham Lowther, who does a lot of photography on Muriwai Beach. And he records these things. And he spoke to these two women afterwards, and they were shocked as to what was happening. So occasionally when we've walked along the beach, even though we're wearing our fluoro vest, four-wheel drivers come in towards us, and they will line us up, and they will move away at the last moment. Now, it's a terrible thing to do, and it's basically, it can cause people to panic. You could run in front of the vehicle. There's all sorts of crap can happen. And unfortunately, I hate talking about silly middle-aged men, but we have a lot of them in New Zealand.
Yes.
Like I've said it many times, people when they get 40 to 40, some of us, not myself, not Stefan, not Fraser, none of you here, but some get hit with a grumpy and stupid stick, and they do dumb things, especially when they're behind the wheel of a four-wheel drive. And we'll show you a few more pictures in a moment of things that can happen.
Because you might get a clear shot of his license plate.
Unfortunately, there's not much enforcement on this beach. Okay, so Muriwai Beach is actually classed as a road, so all the road rules apply. It's just that none of them are actually actioned on. No one ever looks at the vehicles, no one ever checks the behaviour. It's just not done, and that's a real problem. So we've just got some solutions which we've put there. So we try to do beach patrols on beaches with good access and where four-wheel drive use is prohibited or limited. So we do a lot of beach patrols at Karekare Beach through the Scientific Reserve. I do a couple at Whatapu. Parkeru Beach tends to not have many four-wheel drives on it, which is great. There's other places we did do we did do beach patrols in South Auckland, Kariotahi Beach. We no longer do beach patrols there because it's simply too dangerous. Okay. We encourage people to undertake short personal beach patrols, because you can do that and submit your results online, and if you need help doing it, you can ask us for help with your identification, and also incidental beach patrols. So if you're just walking along Mission Bay and you find 2 dead birds, you can do a beach patrol. Just a couple of pictures of some of the stuff at Muriwai Beach. So any dead birds that are going to be in this area are just going to be churned into dust. Basically, you're not going to find them. You've got every sort of vehicle which is unregistered, unfit for the road being used. Yeah, you've just got a huge volume of vehicles coming towards you, coming behind you, and you've also got, in this case here, people deliberately targeting birds on the beach. So the person has crossed the stream, and there is a flock of tara, white-fronted tern. And he's, as you can see from the picture, his attitude is he's heading towards the ocean. Why would he do that? He's done that specifically to try and run over the birds.
Although some people probably just do that as a dare, like, oh, I'll pay you $10 if you run over this flock.
I think it's an odd macho thing. It's very macho in New Zealand to run things over. That's why ducklings get run over. People know they're doing it. We tend to be very macho, but kind of delicate snowflakes at the same time when we want to be. So that's enough of me talking about silly men and their driving behaviours. So you can actually submit beach patrol records online, and you could just do that on the Bird New Zealand website. And it's there's a couple of steps which you go through. It's quite easy to do, and we certainly recommend that if you're on the beach and you do find a lot of birds, please record them. Any sort of data we can get is great. Now I'm going to show you just a news item from a couple of weeks ago, and it's about beach patrolling, and it's also about avian influenza.
Just find the mouse cursor.
One group of volunteers has found itself on the front line as New Zealand's bird flu response continues. They're walking our beaches, recording sightings of sick and dead birds to help authorities keep track of the virus. Aziz Al-Safin joined a patrol at Muriwai in Auckland.
While most come to Muriwai Beach for the surf,
Safety glasses in there in case we need them.
these volunteers are inspecting the sand.
A patrol from Muriwai here all the way up past the stream. We're going to be looking for any sort of birds carcasses, including land birds as well.
Birds New Zealand has patrolled beaches like this for 75 years. Volunteers recording what washes ashore.
Frequently assist with the beach patrols out here looking for dead birds. We've sometimes performed research using the dead birds. So this is a very valuable tool, not only to understand what's out here, but also that it's contributing to science.
It looks like we've got one just over here.
Today's find, an Antarctic fulmar, travelled from deep in the Southern Ocean.
We might put it in a sack.
But its death will not automatically cause for alarm.
Dead birds on beaches are a common thing, especially in winter time, and it happens quite a lot. And we shouldn't panic about 1 or 2 dead birds being found, but at the same time we should be very aware, and we should be very careful.
Anything from storms, food shortages, or long migrations can leave birds stranded on our shores.
We might have something down there.
But after New Zealand's first detection of H5 bird flu, what's found here now carries added importance. Now, if you are walking on a beach and you come across a bird just like this, the most important thing is not to touch it. Make sure you take a photo at a distance, and most importantly, the authorities know exactly where it's been found.
Especially if it's 3 or more birds. If they're very fresh birds, that's more of a possibility that they may have had bird flu. If they're birds that have died a long time ago, maybe a month ago, and there's just bone fragments, there's probably not really a need to report those ones.
Dog owners also urged to keep their pets close.
If possible, keep your dogs on the leash because you do not want to harm your own puppy and your doggo, especially as it can transmit.
All of the wildlife in New Zealand is unique and it just needs protecting.
Keeping a watchful eye as authorities warn more bird flu cases will soon reach our shores. Aziz Al-Sa'afin, One News.
Thanks, Stefan. It was good to see that again. So that was a really good news article that we were very, very happy with. And a lot of our people who were interviewed came across very well, which was wonderful. It was very interesting because Television New Zealand put it on their social media, which I thought I'd look at. Now, my recommendation was that I actually had a cousin of mine contact me saying, Ian, don't look at it, because we suffered absolute damnation and we suffered huge insults on social media for that post, for that, people, there's a lot of conspiracy theorists in New Zealand, and a lot of people believe that avian influenza is actually a hoax. It isn't. And there's a lot of people that believe in flat earth and chemtrails in the sky, and every angry person behind a keyboard had to come out and insult us. Quite often it was just pure insults. I won't tell you the words, but it mainly started with F and stuff like that. And I typed back on a couple of occasions saying, did you actually watch or did you read the article? People even said they're not wearing gloves. The first thing about bird watching is, one of the best things is it teaches you good observation skills. Look at the video, we're actually all wearing gloves. But it was a very interesting news article. We were very happy with it, but some of the responses to it were a bit crazy. And as you know, avian influenza has taken hold in Australia, and it most likely affects birds which breed or roost in a colony. So birds like gannets and shags and terns, and also birds like shorebirds which might congregate together. So close proximity is how they actually spread the disease, and it can actually wipe out entire colonies like it's doing.
Did you hear reports about them you trying to vaccinate birds like Takahe and stuff on there?
So we're vaccinating birds in New Zealand which are in small captive populations, and that's some of our most rarest endemic birds. But once actually avian influenza takes hold in New Zealand, it will be here permanently. It's not something we'll be able to get rid of. But the thing we suggest you don't do anymore is feed birds in your garden. Okay, so don't use that sugar water feeder, which you probably shouldn't be using anyway. It's better to plant a tree. And we're going to have to stop feeding birds. It's going to be a big habit for people to lose, but we need to do that. So a lot of thanks to a lot of people for their photographs, including some people who are here tonight. Stefan, a few of his photographs are there. And thanks to all the many volunteers who do our beach patrols. You're most welcome to come along on one day or do one of your own. And certainly if you find any unusual seabirds on the beach that are alive or dead, you can contact us and we can help you with identification. So I'm going to finish with a really good picture of a live light-mantled sooty albatross to show you how spectacular they are, as a lot of our seabirds are. So thanks very much. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me.
When's the next beach patrol?
We've got a field trip this Sunday at Karikari, and we're going to do a little bit of the beach patrol. John.